What is good, you guys? It's Lifestyle from lifestyledidit.com, and in today's video we are going to be mixing the trap soul beat that I made previously right before this video. I want to thank you guys so much for all the love and support you showed on that video. I dropped a poll and I asked, hey, do you guys want me to mix this beat and do a how to mix trap soul? You guys said yes, so in today's video we are going to mix that same exact beat. Let's get into it. All right, so let's get straight into it. We have the keys, pads, pluck, vocal, everything nice and named, easily colored on the mixer track. You'll see over here I have all my leads, my keys, pluck, vocal. I have my kick and my 808 the same color of a blue, and then I have all of the rest of my drums purple, and then I have this effect yellow. And this makes it really easy for me to see while I'm mixing, especially since I can't see very well. It makes it nice and easy for me to see everything on the mixer and know where I'm going to reach. If there's something with drums, I'm going to go towards purple, kick and bass, or kick and 808 blue. Super easy, super simple. So this is going to be the raw mix of the beat. So this is how it is after I finish making the beat, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is some gain staging. We're gonna get our levels correct. Then we're going to do some leveling. We'll get into EQ, compression, reverb, all of that good stuff. So the first thing I like to do with the mix is make sure that my pre-gain going into the mixer is good. So I'm gonna get a pretty basic level going here, make sure some things aren't way too quiet and make sure other things aren't very loud. And then I'm going to do a fader mix with the faders on the mixer. So let's start. So as you'll see, the kick is very loud. I'm gonna throw the kick and the 808 in mono. I'm actually gonna leave this 808 stereo because the 808 I used has some nice stereo information that I wanna keep, but most of the time I would go into mono. So first thing I'm gonna do is turn this kick down a little bit, it's too loud. Since it's gonna be probably the loudest part of this mix, peaking around -9's, okay, that sounds pretty good to me. So let's see what else. This open hi-hat's very quiet, so we can actually go over here and turn this up a lot. All right, the pluck can come up. We need some more room to work with that. That's all pretty good. This clap. So like I said, right now I'm just making sure that the levels I'm gonna work with and run into my plugins are going to be a good level, optimal level, right? So this sounds good. So now I'm going to get a basic mix on the mixer track. So it's easily, I'm just gonna listen and adjust things as such and get a nice little level going. So I'm gonna put the mix in mono and we're gonna start. Okay, so these all sound good. I might merge. Actually, I'll keep these separate. We might process them a little bit differently. So let's go ahead, keep going. Okay, I want these pads a bit louder. All right, so for a rough mix, this sounds pretty good. So I'm gonna go over here. I know the first thing I want to do to this right off the bat is EQ, reverb, and delay on this vocal because I want it to be tucked in the back. So before we start anything, we're actually just gonna run that real quick. So I'm gonna show you the rundown of doing that. So let's tuck it back with some EQ. And I want a huge reverb and delay on this vocal. Get a delay going, and the reason I want to do that is because you could see when I created the beat I left some openings, some spaces in between each vocal phrase because I wanted to fill it out with delay like this. All right, that sounds good so far. Come over to the keys and I'm gonna free up some space for these 808s to come through and just shine. Cool, so that sounds good. So now really quick, I'm gonna focus on this kick and this 808. They do sound good together, but I want a little bit of sidechain compression going on, and that's just for the style of the beat that I'm doing. So I'm gonna make this real simple. What I'm gonna do is come over here to the kick and I'm going to put the peak controller, and then on the 808, I'm gonna duck certain frequencies. I'm kind of probably gonna do a low shelf duck because I do want some of that sidechain compression to be heard. So peak controller, and then all we need to do is go over to the 808 and we're going to put an EQ on it, and right here we're going to say link to controller, peak, We're going to change this to inverted, the usual 0.5. Sounds good. And now we can go back over here and control this peak controller. So let's do it like this. Let's run these two together and tell this how much to turn down and when to do it. So let's see, we're doing about, I would say probably 60 to 70 hertz. I want a quicker decay. Cool. All right, that sounds good. For this open hi-hat, I'm actually going to take out some of this high end just right off the jump. I kind of want it to be tucked in the back. I also want a reverb on this, so what I'm going to do is throw a reverb on it, because for these beats I like to have a lot of space. Since they're pretty open for the artist, I like to have a lot of ambient spaces going on in the background. Cool effects. Alright, so definitely the next thing I'm going to do, this kick sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these leads and just listen to my drums for a little bit in mono. Get rid of that alien effect as well. So the kick sounds good. I think the kick can use a tiny boost in that 50 to 60 range. And then there's a bit of that extreme low end that we don't need in it. So let's go ahead and just take that out. So let me reset this. We're gonna do a bit of a steep cut. We're gonna go over here and take out probably under, I don't know, 28, 30 hertz. Give it a boost around that 50 to 60 range. Small one. Cool, that sounds good. And then on this 808, I'm actually going to use some saturation. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get decapitator. And I'm going to kind of warm up this bass. That's very aggressive. That sounds pretty good. Just getting a thicker tone to it. Cool. So now we have these three elements of the claps and the snares, right? So this one's more of an accent. This is the main snare. And then we have this one. Right? So these two are going to be accents. They sound good together. For the clap, I'm going to boost a bit of high end, so I could actually just do it right here. I just want to get a nice sizzle out of the clap. And then we're going to layer that back in with the original snare. And then let's bring in a couple of drum elements and like a piano and a pad. And the pad has reverb on from the original tutorial where I added it just because I wanted that in there. Cool, and on this main snare, what we're gonna do is come over here and add JST clip to it. So add a bit of clipping. It's gonna make it really hit. Let's back this off a tiny bit like this. And then let's grab all three of these and turn them down. Cool, that sounds good. Next thing we're gonna do is come over to this hi-hat. I wanna put decapitator on this as well. And let's cut out some of that low end. Cool, so that's sounding good. Let's go ahead and flip that back. And then definitely the next thing I'm going to do is EQ some of this mid-range out of these keys. So I'm gonna have a few things running. So the keys sound good, but I want to get some of this mid-range build-up out of there. I want this to sound a little bit more thin because that's why I put the pads in there to kind of accent it and beef it up. So you'll hear the keys by themselves with the pad. So the pad's already doing what I wanted the keys to be, what I wanted taken out of the keys. So now let's go over to the pads and let's get a little bit of EQ going on with these. Again, I'm going to put it in mono so I can hear everything I'm doing. There's some build up in this 500 range. Let's cut some of that out, get these to work better with each other. Bring in that 808. Vocal sounding good. Maybe cut out a tiny bit more high end on this vocal. And let's see how this sounds so far. Let's turn up all these. Let's bring down our drums a tiny bit. flip it back. And actually on this hi-hat, on this open hat, I still want some of this high end gone. I kind of want it to really be tucked in the back with that big reverb. It's more of an accented tone. There we go, now it's nice and tucked. And then the next thing we need to do is this alien effect. So it's a cool little effect I added in. So we're gonna layer it in with this pad. Make sure it doesn't affect and get in the way of anything. I don't need the low end of this, I just want the tone. Right? And then we're going to put a little bit of a delay on it. We'll go with probably like half note so it can kind of bounce around in the background. And then we'll use S1 to widen it out a lot. And the last thing we have to do is affect this, but in the tutorial I actually added some EQ and delay, so it's pretty much already processed. I'm just going to widen it out a tiny bit, throw my mix back in mono, and let's check it out. Now let's make some small adjustments. The drums still need to come down. I'm going to turn my volume on the master down a lot so I can really hear what comes in first. Okay, so I still want these drums to be turned down a tiny bit. Snare and clap down a tiny bit. And then let's bring this back up and let's see what this sounds like. I'm gonna turn my headphones down a tiny bit. All right, so it's sounding pretty leveled and pretty good, but what I'm gonna do is actually bring these up a tiny bit more, and I'm gonna really bring up my kick and 808 now, because I like my kick and 808 to be the forefront and really punch in the front of the mix for these style of beats, especially the bass line. So I'm gonna crank this up a lot till I think it sounds good, and then we're gonna go from there. But right now it sounds pretty even. Now I'm gonna go ahead and boost it up because I want it to be louder. And we're going to go over to the master, and since this is just a mixing tutorial, I'm actually just going to do a small amount of EQ on the master and then get some loudness with the clipper because the mix sounds good. So let's just do that real quick. So go over here and we'll get the parametric EQ because everyone has this, and we'll roll off everything under 20 hertz, and then we can either limit or clip our masters. I have a lot of videos that cover this. For this one, I want the tone that happens when you use a clipper, so I'm going to use a clipper for this. So I'm going to come over here, get soft clipper, and I'm actually going to turn down post to 79%, and what that's going to do is actually keep it right below 0. So if you don't do that, sometimes you'll go over 0. If you keep that and then put your LUFS meter or whatever you use to read your metering after on true peak, you'll see that it'll actually keep it right underneath 0, about -0.3, -0.2, which is perfect. So we have that set, and the next thing that we have to do is just push volume into it. You can use a soft clipper, but I like to just push volume in using the EQ. It's just habit, so let's do that. So before I do that, what you'll see is that we have about, let's say, -8 to -7 dB of headroom before 0, when it kind of jumps up to 6, right? So I'm going to take this, and I know I at least have to get to 6 dB before I start pushing into the clipper and getting any gain reduction going on. So what I'm going to do is push that up, and I know anything past 6 will be doing gain reduction, but the easy way to tell is if I turn off the soft clipper, I can actually see how much I'm going over 0, so I can kind of have an idea of how much gain reduction is being done since the clipper doesn't show that. If you use the limiter, it would show you how much gain reduction you're doing. So first I'm going to just use my ears, and then I'm going to just double check and see how much gain reduction I'm doing. Take this off and you'll be able to see how much we're going over 0. So with the snare, sometimes we're going about 3 dB over. So let's go back, keep pushing. I'm actually going to turn the snare down a little bit. It's kind of too loud. Go ahead and put this back in mono for a little bit. And let me show you what it sounds like if we pushed it too much. I don't like that tone, so I'm going to bring this back. Sounds good to me. Let's flip it out and then let's get an LUFS meter and check what we're at. So you'll see that we have an LUFS reading that varies between about -9 to -11, and then we have true peak of -0.2, which is perfect. That's right below 0, and I think it sounds really good. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like this video, leave a thumbs up. You guys can follow me on all social medias at Lifestyle Did It. Make sure to hit my site, lifestyledidit.com, for everything else. Other than that, subscribe to your boy, push notifications. Thanks.